and reach financial freedom if you did it last year? Every year. Every time somebody talks about reaching financial freedom or making investments that paid off to where that person never has to work again, the response we see, and a lot of those responses we're going to get to on some of the Business Insider article comments that came up on Matt's recent article, are how you were only able to do it because you did it before now. In 2009 and 2010, during the biggest crash that I remember in my life, everyone was saying, I can't buy real estate. Anybody who owns real estate now is lucky because you bought it in 2006 and 7 and 8 when lenders were lending to anybody. It was so easy. You could just go say, I make $500,000 a year, and they would loan you money to buy a rental. Well, in 2010 and 11, you couldn't buy rentals because you weren't lucky enough to buy it before the crash. Literally, that was the response we were getting. Around 2013, people were saying, if you bought in 2010 and 11, you're lucky. There's no way you can buy real estate now. Prices are higher than they were in 2008. 2010 and 11 was the bottom of the crash. And if you bought then, you were lucky. That's why you're rich. In 2015, everybody was saying if you bought in 2013, you were super lucky because right now we have a massive wave, a silver tsunami coming across where all these boomers are going to start retiring and housing is going to crash. So if you buy now, you're going to lose a bunch of money. The only people that will make money bought in 2013. In 2018, consistently, when I was buying my duplex in 2018, investors were telling me I was stupid because it was too late to buy. The only reason I was successful is because I bought earlier, because in 2018, interest rates hit 6%, and you can't buy a rental that's going to cash flow when interest rates are 6%. I was lucky because I bought last year, every year. In 2019, there was an inventory surge where demand went down, and everybody said, if you bought in 2018, you were lucky because right now there's going to be a crash because demand is going away. And then in 2020, we have a pandemic. The world shuts down. Ken McElroy came out and has since corrected it, and I watch his stuff. I have respect for him. But in 2020, he called for a 40% real estate crash. So the only way you were going to be successful is if you waited or if you had purchased in 2018 when those interest rates were 6%. That's the only way you were going to be successful, is to have bought already. In 2021, everybody said prices have shot up because of the pandemic. The only way you can do this successfully is if you bought in 2020. In 2022, interest rates doubled, and everyone said, if you bought in 2020 or 2021, the second easiest year in the last 50 years to buy a house, you were lucky because you bought then. Well, it's 2023 right now, and everyone is saying there's no way you can buy successfully because prices are still high, right? My market in between Tacoma and Olympia and Washington is still up almost 6%. There's several markets, like Memphis is up 47%. There are some markets that are down, but people are saying prices are high, interest rates are high, rents are not high enough. There's no way you can buy now unless you bought last year. So I have Matt, the Lumberjack Landlord, and Millennial Mike on here so that we can talk about a year from now, in 2024, 2025, when everybody is saying, whatever thing is happening in 2024 that makes it the wrong time to buy, that there's no way you can successfully do it, people are going to be saying, and my guess is, you were so lucky you bought in 2023 because you had a metric that doesn't exist in 2024. You could watch days on market. And when the days on market got to 2 or 3 times what was normal for your market, you can make a ridiculous offer. I just recently, a week or two ago, saw a property during one of my members only live streams that was listed for $475, was on the market for over a month. So I made a $400,000 offer. They came back at $425. A $50,000 haircut because I watched days on market. In 2024 or 2025, we're probably not going to be able to watch days on market because something will shift. And everybody that's buying today will be the lucky ones. That was my rant. And my intro video that I wish I was recording. Dang it.
You can always edit it.
Wait, just clip this out.
Not how that works. You're going to have to teach me the next time you come over, Mike.
Much like a vasectomy, just clip it.
Just clip it out. Right? Both sides. Okay.
Are we about to get a group on, the 3 of us together, and go get that?
No,
absolutely
not.
I had that decades ago.
Absolutely.
After the third kid, and this is way too much of an overshare, on birth control using protection with women who swore they wouldn't have kids, having 3 kids. I went and did that. So anyway, back to real estate and stuff that really matters.
Yes. If ifs and buts were candy and nuts, we'd all have an Unterdonk fest. This is a bunch of stupid. Like, this is what operators do. This is why I am an operator. This is why I teach it. I recognized, because I'd been in the market for 20 years, that we had the best cost of money that we'd ever had before. And so I bought, because people couldn't raise the prices on the asset fast enough to make up for how small the rate was. And so I bought like a banshee, because I had historical proof and evidence at the cost of money being the least expensive it had ever been in all time. And so I kept on buying, and I kept on buying. And now I look as smart as I was, because I have a bunch of assets, all with rents 20, 30, and 40% higher than they were 2 years ago. And I bought it with the cheapest debt, sub 4%, that I ever bought with. So everyone can sit there and I am the luckiest man alive, or I'm just much smarter than you. The best part is I share it on my channel every week, so you can see what I'm doing. Might I fail? Always a possibility. Am I afraid of it? Nope, not at all. Because it's about understanding the market, and it's about making moves and not just talking about it. I make moves. It is what it is. And I might lose. Quite possible.
So Matt, if you could do me a favor and look through some of the Facebook posts of the Business Insider article. Let's not read your responses. People can find them themselves. But let's look at what were people saying, because Business Insider shares articles of, here's a 27-year-old who purchased a laundromat and is working on financial freedom. Here's somebody who has 27 rentals before they're 27 years old, or all the things that they write about success. And there seems like there's this need for people to go into the comments and either say one of two things. One, investors are horrible. It's why the market sucks, is because there's investors.
Sure.
Or two, they're lucky because they did it before now. Almost like every single now, people are looking for that reason to not take action.
Oh, yeah. So I will give you one that got almost 100 likes. It says, it's telling that all of their success stories for younger people are of people who make their money charging hardworking class families to live in houses the bank owns. It's a cool grift. Make someone else pay your mortgages until eventually it's all equity and pretend you earned it because you're smarter or something. Hey, Mary, I am smarter. Thank you for noticing.
That is not a dig against investors. That is a freaking sales slogan.
It is.
Like, that's the point. I always like the people who say, well, being a landlord or an investor is not a job. No kidding. Right? You don't invest to create a job. You invest to create income, wealth, financial freedom.
Yes.
So, and what really sucks is,
I have a good one.
There's a lot of comments like that. And if we were in the convincing business, we could sit down and calmly respond with, I understand the pain that you're in and that you feel like you can't do this, but here are some simple strategies that you can use to improve your life. Maybe let me introduce you to Dave Ramsey so you can get your finances under control and then figure out if you want to be an investor or not. And once you realize that the system really isn't out to get you, the system is designed to reward you for doing things like being innovative or an investor. That's actually why we have a tax incentive program.
Yes.
Before Matt reads a couple more, I want to give the viewers a little context here. Okay. I want the viewers to know what Dion and I put up with. Okay. So we got a little group chat between the three of us, the fellas, right? And I'll just be, sitting there doing my thing. Maybe I'm just playing video games, or I'm at work. God forbid I make a 6-minute traffic stop and I come back to my phone and ping, 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 ping. And I'm like, what's going on? Did somebody die? Oh my God. And I open it up and Matt's sending screenshot after screenshot of, look how I just flamed this loser in the Facebook chat. So yeah, this video today might literally be us going through and sharing with you guys the stupidity that's on Facebook that we love to get into. But I just want you to know it is an unhealthy addiction for Matt. I'm a little worried for
this was if you comb everything I've ever responded, I responded more to this thread than ever before. And it was because it got to a certain point where people were literally saying I should be killed. They literally said that. I had to report like 17 different comments where they said this person should be hung, this person should be shot. Like, is that the discourse now? Like, at the end of the day, I don't think about that person at all. I'm grateful that they might be one of my renters, but I'm renting from them and just paying them no money for all the space I have in their head. At the end of the day, it's how we approach Facebook, right? And so when I see an article on any of you guys, when I see it on Todd Baldwin or anybody else, I'm reading the article to see if he did something or approached it a certain way or had a certain mindset with how something was done, to see if I can learn from that and gain knowledge from that and then make that part of my repertoire. That's the whole purpose of hanging out with other investors, is you want to get better. And so admittedly, a lot of these, like this one got 435 thumbs ups. 435. It says, he serves no authentic function in society. It's a little bit harsh, but I'd also disagree. He is simply acting as a gatekeeper for resources that already exist. 32 different families, because that's what they cited the number of buildings I had. So he didn't even read the whole article, because I have 32, but they were all multifamily. So it's actually 100 units worth of people, but he thinks single family, didn't even read the whole article. 32 different families could have bought those buildings outright, but instead he's going to hoard the land and charge enough to pay off his debts. If those families were paying a mortgage instead of rent, they would be well on their way to home ownership. But people like him make that next to impossible. It's not accurate.
Well, at least he took the time to write something.
Did he read the first paragraph?
Inaccurate, but articulate. I'm a little disappointed with the social platform of Facebook, right?
Yes.
If you've seen the Reddit anti-work, the very creative, very descriptive ways they wish we would die when they see a Business Insider article, compared to he should be shot, he should be hung. Like, come on,
Yeah.
step up your game.
I know. One of them said he should be walked in front of one of the walls of his buildings.
I saw that one. Yep.
Yeah.
Did any of those rentals have a nice big wall we could march you in front of? It's like, oh man, that is straight up some Russian Red Army, put the kulaks in the gulag type crap right there.
So
Again,
the good thing with this is, yes, those do get the most likes, but every now and then you see a comment where somebody steps in, asks an actual question, and you can answer it with, hey, this can help you. And that's a person who's looking for the knowledge on how people did this.
Right.
So there are people that we can help. Some of them come here. Some of them right now are typing furiously in the chat going, what the hell do you mean I have to be a subscriber for 5 minutes to cuss this guy out? That's not fair.
Hey, listen, at the end of the day, some people use Facebook as a tool and some people don't. And some people go buy a hammer in the store and hit themselves in the head with it and then wonder why it's not working. Like, this is where it comes down to. I am more than happy to help anybody. Again, we all laugh because I don't do YouTube because of the money. It's hundreds of dollars a month. The whole reason I do it is because I know that I've helped thousands of people answer questions about their unit, how to market it, what to fix, what value there is, et cetera, et cetera. I know that we've helped thousands of people just because there was a pursuit of knowledge there. I actually love social media from the perspective where I learn something new every day. Sometimes it's a new way to curse, but I learn something new every single day. And I love that aspect of it. The problem is there's so much of a toilet out there because people aren't using the technology and the tool right. Like, voice your opinion and concern. Do you think I'm going to just like throw my 137 units on the market and be like, that guy on Facebook was probably right. I probably need to dump it all now.
So, Matt.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with the phrase, holding on to anger is like drinking poison, hoping your opponent dies?
Yes. And that's why I'm not angry.
Right. So when you're on Facebook, and you're interacting with that negativity, that toxicity, that 400 thumbs up for somebody hoping that you die, I can't believe I'm not alone, but
Yes.
here's, and I don't want to turn this into a sales pitch for your course, right? I'm just going to keep this as brief as possible.
Sure.
I'm a teaching assistant for the BiggerPockets bootcamp. So I'm really looking forward to your bootcamp sessions where we get together.
Yes.
Because so last night, so every Thursday we have this office hour. So it's like an hour where I answer questions of people who watch BiggerPockets, who paid money to be in the course to get access to the teachers' assistants, the investors with the knowledge to reach financial freedom. It's literally, no kidding, pen and paper, notes. They ask a question. You know, I either know the answer, or I say that's an answer, we need to find the answer too, right? Whatever, and then take notes. The positivity that you get with when you deal with people who are trying to learn this, that you're going to get in that boot camp that you put together when you have the course that's going through and the people intentionally watching your stuff.
Yep.
Putting skin in the game, putting money into the course to be there to get the knowledge. That's the positivity that I think you don't think you need this. I think we need this as humans. That yes, there are a whole bunch of people who don't understand that we live in a capitalist society.
Yes.
Right. And all the ways that you want things to be fair. We have social aspects. We have a safety net. We have EBT, food stamps, child daycare subsidies, Section 8 housing, low income housing, you know, all the different things that we have that we do pay property taxes for, first responders, schools, those kind of things, they exist. But to have innovation, to have more builds happen so that we have enough housing for everybody, to have technology develop the way we have to have a system where we can communicate with people like this. Capitalism is what's doing that. There are so many people that don't understand that's what you're going to interact with on Facebook.
Sure.
That it can almost get to the point where we think that's the way the world is. That we need the people like the people who are in the chat here today. Like T. Adams, saving, going to get the deal. Like that drive, us saying, okay, well, so here's how we can help you do that. Here's the things to consider. Here's what shifted in the last couple of years compared to what's going on in the market now. Let's get you to that purchase. That's what we need to know, that the world isn't, and this, I'm gonna use a bad word, so if there's kids watching, cover their ears. The world isn't a crap fest like it seems on social media.
Right. Yeah. I agree. Well, and honestly, that's why we charge for the boot camp. That's why we charged for it, was because it wasn't a bunch of lazy people calling to, throw stuff at the kids at the front of the class trying to get an education. It's about, you have to earn the right you have to invest in yourself to be here. And if you do, this is going to be a blast. You're going to absolutely get a massive return on the investment that you made. No doubt.
Kris, thank you for the super chat. I appreciate it. And I agree. My favorite response is Matt's response at the end of a lot of his statements. Hey, rents too. T-shirt coming soon.
Yeah. Yeah. It's good.
I think if we went back to the topic of the video, the title of the video, is it lucky? Did we just get lucky? We picked the right time? Well, there's a famous quote most people have probably seen at some point, which is just luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. But at the end of the day, I think, to say that there wasn't a modicum of luck involved would be dishonest or disingenuous. Of course, things have happened that you didn't plan to happen or that you didn't expect to happen that have worked out in your benefit. Nobody expected 40% rent appreciation in 2021 as a result of the government shutting down the country for an unforeseen pandemic and then printing money to the tune of $6 trillion. Nobody planned for that. Did it work out to our benefit? Yes, of course it did. Yeah, if you're going to give me that type of rental appreciation, wonderful. So of course, there's sometimes things that happen that are lucky. But if you are actively preparing yourself, when an opportunity comes along and then you take advantage of that opportunity because you have prepared yourself and put yourself in a position to take advantage of that opportunity, to the outsider looking in, it looks like you got awfully lucky. But in reality, it was years of being unlucky and doing the hard work on the front end. I mean, I can promise you, I was not lucky when I had to work 50 hours of overtime a week for 6 months so I could save up a down payment for my very first house hack. I was not lucky when I was buying a house hack in Seattle at the time, which was the #1 appreciating market in the country 23 months in a row back in 2018 when I purchased. Hottest market in the country, very hard to purchase a house in. I was not lucky when I was buying at the then high interest rate of 5% because coming out of the recession, it had been lower than that and they were starting to go up. I wasn't lucky when I did the work to learn how to find these tenants by doing the research online and things like that, to figure out how to qualify and look for and find good tenants. Like, it wasn't luck. It was an awful lot of hard work. And, you know, the whole, overnight success is 30 years in the making, and then you'll be that overnight success. Well, I'm not an overnight success yet, but there certainly was a lot of forethought and effort and late nights and early mornings and hard work and dedication and sacrifices. My best friend just came to visit me, and I told him, I was like, we should take our families and go on a vacation. And he goes, who are you? You never go. You refuse to take time off. What do you mean you want to go on a vacation? This isn't you. And he's making fun of me to Marina. Like, this isn't the same Mike that I know. Like, he's willing to take time off. Where have you gone? I'm like, oh yeah, I guess in the last year things have changed a little bit. So
it's all Dion's fault.
It is a little bit.
And so people understand a little bit of who you are.
Who invited me to New Hampshire and to Vegas? It's a little bit your fault.
Not really. I mean, well, you said yes. I mean, it's, you know.
And so that people understand who you are, Mike, you are currently in the middle of a 3-week vacation, of which 2 of those weeks is going to be spent doing SWAT training, right?
Yeah.
So you're not quite on our side of the fence yet.
Yeah, I have the next 3 weeks off. I'm still going to, starting today, I'm still going to go into work today to catch up on paperwork that I can never get caught up with. And then I've got 2 weeks that I'm going to do SWAT training, and I'm going to try to get my drone pilot license in there as well, which will be a 2-day course. So I might only actually take 2 days off. I just don't like taking time off.
I get it. You're not getting paid for days off.
Actually, I do, but whatever. I have vacation time.
You double dip.
Yes, exactly. You double dip. You get paid twice, which today was payday for the brokies out there, the wage slaves like me. I get paid on the 10th and the 25th. So Dion, you don't know what that's like, but Matt and we at least have paydays.
I'm very close. I'm very close to understanding what that's like. I had 4 rent payments come in today, and I was like, wow, it seems a bit early. But then I realized, it's payday.
It is payday.
For other people.
Correct.
That's right.
And next Tuesday isn't.
Right.
Yes. Right.
So Chester makes a good point here with, 30% of the country, less than 30% makes over 35,000 a year. Not to say it's impossible for them to afford home ownership, house hacking, but most people don't do what's necessary to own a house.
Right.
So the statistics like this is one of the reasons why I'm trying to do what we're doing. The one that gets me the most is 49% of people in the United States aged 55 to 65. So that just before regular retirement age have 0 saved for retirement. Nothing.
Yeah.
So we're trying to get information out, like maybe you're not going to be able to reach financial freedom if you're 63 by the time you're 65, but you can do a few things by the time you're 65 that can add cash flow to your retirement. To make it a better retirement. Zuber talked about if he just got to 4, his retirement would be better, even though he didn't at the time think financial freedom. He was just making his retirement better. The people that, 30% less, let me make sure I get this quote right. And it's a quote from Chester. I'm not sure the source. I'm going to look up the source too later. 30% of less than 30% of the country makes over 35,000 a year. We're putting this information out there, and I've talked in several videos about the 6 steps to get started in investing. And the first one is learning how to save. And saving doesn't mean spending less. It means figuring out how to increase your income. I mean, for some people, that's overtime. Like me and Mike did a lot of overtime. Matt, I'm sure, I don't know how much, he's not paid really by the hour, I don't think.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
But
I want to make more money. I just need to sell more.
You develop a side hustle. You get better at your trade. You learn skills. You learn communication styles to be better at sales if that's what you're doing. You learn a skill that makes you have more value to your employer to get a higher increase. There are studies that show that people who change companies every 2 to 3 years end up making more money than people who stay at the company for 10 to 20 years. So there are ways to be increasing your income. That's the first step of investing. The information we're sharing is not the dumbest thing that we heard on I think it was a Choose FI podcast reacting to TikTok. TikTok said something funny, and the Choose FI podcast said, don't invest in real estate until you're wealthy. Once you're wealthy and you have money, you can put it to work in real estate to make that was like the dumbest thing I've ever heard. We invest in real estate to become wealthy. We all have to live somewhere. And if you're renting, have roommates. Start house hacking before you can buy. I used house hacking before I was an investor to get through the police academy, because it's a 6-month academy that's 10 plus hours that was over an hour away. So I rented out a room to a young couple for free so that I wouldn't have to somehow afford 24-hour a day live-in daycare. They provided the daycare for housing, so I can make it through the academy. We can do things to increase our income so that we can change the statistic of less than 30% of the US making over 35,000 a year, which that's the first time I've heard that one. So I'm gonna have to, if you could tell me, Chester, where you got that from. So I appreciate everybody hanging out with us on a Friday random midday live stream. We will give it some more time. If there's any questions you want to get into the comments, we can cover them. The idea with this video is you're going to be alive in 5 years. Start investing like it. 5 years from now, you're going to wish you had done investing strategies, whether it was increasing your income, increasing your credit score, actually investing your money in 2023. Even though right now, everyone is saying the only way you could be successful is if you had purchased before. And there was the comment, I'm sorry, I missed who said it, but you can't change the past. Today's always the best day, since we can't change the past. I forget what.
Yeah, I mean, like the best time to plant an oak tree was 50 years ago. The second best time is today, essentially. It kind of boils down to that. Like, yep, it'd be really cool if you could go back to 2009 when the recession was happening and the housing prices were falling, but you can't. Nobody has a time machine. Mine's broken just like yours, just like the crystal ball machine's busted too. So just take the best action you can today, moving forward. You guys look real interested right now.
Well,
I think that's finding some
good.
I
kind of like to have this visible on the screen, so it's not like I look like the teenager looking at my phone checking text. I'm actually on here seeing the chat, making sure I can find the person who said that. I was actually glad you were talking, and I still couldn't find it, but I remember seeing it. So
I read that one too. Yeah, I forgot what the exact quote was. Matt, you don't have any more chats for us?
Oh,
What's
I
that?
have more. I have.
We should respond. Like you should take a couple of those. You should respond to them.
I've responded
to them live here.
That's probably not the best idea.
Well, just edit yourself a little bit.
Yeah, it's probably not the best idea either.
Melissa points out, Mike, that you're just lucky. She says,
True.
That you're double dipping on vacation is a perfect example of getting prepared for opportunity, which is going to be
right.
why you're lucky.
That's right.
You have coworkers that are taking vacation and then spending. They're not only trying to earn money on their vacation, they're spending money on their vacation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 1,500 people are quite passionate about my financial wherewithal and well-being. Well, here's another one. This one was in the minority, but here's a positive one. And this is always nice. She said, good for him. He paid his dues, renting with roommates, taking cheap houses that was a long commute from work, etc., in order to save up and invest in real estate. And he is self-taught software engineer, not an engineer, but close enough. But I am self-taught, who didn't waste his money on a useless degree to boot. So good wealth building decisions all around. Folks complaining about evil landlords should try making the sacrifices he made early in his career to start building their own wealth instead of shaking their fists at the free market. It's a great comment.
Like I said, every now and then there's a comment of somebody who's actually reading the article for what it's intended for. Saying, here's an example of success. We're not saying you have to do exactly this, but take some element of it, put it into what you're doing, improve your personal finances.
Yes.
I was absolutely attacked the other day by somebody who didn't like my short. In my short, I said something like, it's not my plan to give a bunch of money to my kids because a big inheritance can mess them up. I think the best thing we can do, and this was the purpose of the short. This is what I'm about to say. The best thing we can do for our kids is to take care of our personal finances so we don't become a burden to our kids when we're too old to work. And that person went on a rant, like 15 plus comments of what a horrible person I am, not wanting to leave an inheritance to my kids. Now, my kids are going to inherit my stuff, but I'm not planning on trying to create the most generational wealth. I wanted to create financial freedom so that I'm not a burden to them, because I actually know a lot of people whose parents are in their 60s and 70s now, and their kids are my age, covering their parents' auto insurance, car repairs, car registration, cell phone, internet, and often shopping, because their parents didn't take any steps to be ready for when they didn't have income.
Another one was article says he's an executive of a software company. So yeah, building wealth is really easy, clearing $200,000 to $300,000 per year. Cause that's where I started 22 years ago.
Right. When you're out of the ninth grade and you start working in IT, they just give you 250,000 a year to start.
Yeah. You have to like, here
Company
comes the
car.
talent. Yeah, nothing like that was ever said. So I think but there's a number of really good comments as well. There was another person that said, I actually really like this comment too. Where'd it go? Here it is. Teachers tell us that you must finish school to have anything in life. I walked out of school and went into the service for 3 years and then started my life. I own 3 homes, great Harley 4 street rods, 2 family cars, and life has been good. I self-taught myself how to build a home, weld, build cars, do plumbing and electrical. Pretty good for a dropout. Plus I drove tractors coast to coast. This is the American dream. You can't do that in other countries. You can't do that in other countries. You can do that in America. That's what makes this country great. Just makes it great. I love the fact. Or, my own close personal friend asking how much money I make in net. I'd never share that with you. We're not that close.
I know. I look forward to the time when my portfolio is so large I can't share the numbers because I want it to be achievable. So I go, look, I was making $17 an hour a little over 10 years ago. This is where it ended up in 10 years. You can do this. I don't know that my portfolio will ever get large enough to not share the numbers because I have a different strategy than you.
No.
But I have a question here from, go ahead.
You're going smaller.
I am going smaller. Size matters, I've heard.
Within 3 to 5 years, you're going smaller. Yes.
I'm definitely going to add one in the next year to deploy some capital.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm probably in the next 3 to 5 years going to go smaller. You're absolutely
for sure.
Like,
100%.
Right.
Yep.
Question from Afro Capitalist here.
Yeah.
How do you run the numbers or return on investment if you house hack by moving every 1 to 2 years? So I have 2 things I'm going to do. First, we've all 3 house hacked.
Mm-hmm.
I will let you answer, but Afro Capitalist, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a link to a video in the chat where I break down literally how to run the numbers on a house hack, but we're going to talk about it here too. So after you guys, I'll put that link in the chat. Mike?
Okay, yeah, good question. Real quick to touch on something else. If you guys do want to hear 2 long, full-length discussions of Dion and Matt explaining how they feel about the whole landlords or parasites phenomenon or landlords are evil, we did 2 videos together. They're on my channel and they go into deep detail of their beliefs on that. So you guys can check that out. Number 2, Afro Capitalist. So I run the numbers on a house hack way different than I do on a regular investment property. When I decide whether or not I think a house hack is a good idea, I go based off of, am I getting my monthly payment down? So, if you're renting right now, and like I was in the Seattle area paying like $2,000 a month, and I was able to get my first duplex, which had a mortgage payment that was $2,700 a month, but I was able to get tenants and I was able to get a roommate to the point where I ended up only having to pay $300 a month. Well, I dropped from $2,000 a month to $300 a month. So that's $1,700 a month saved. Really made sense. Now, had I looked at that same house hack duplex, if I'd looked at it and said, is this a good investment opportunity? Well, if I rent both sides out, then I have the mortgage versus what the rent's bringing in. After I set aside for vacancies and maintenance, it might have broken even. So it wouldn't have been a good investment opportunity, but it represented a great opportunity for me to save $1,700 a month. So I decided that was a good opportunity and a good house hack. But again, that's why it was hard for me to continue investing in the Seattle area, because I was looking at all of these properties and these duplexes and I was like, they don't really pencil out. You don't really cash flow very much. And you have to pay a lot of money out of pocket to get them. And so that's what led me to look at investing somewhere else and eventually led me to invest in Gary, Indiana. Now, Dion's the one who's encouraged me that I need to buy another one. I think he's right. I think I should. Because over the last few years, the one I'm currently in with rent increases over time, it's gotten significantly better. And if I could get another really nice asset in a really nice neighborhood that maybe doesn't cash flow super well day one, but it keeps my cost of living similar to what I'm at right now. I'm just trading to one other property. Well, now I get all of the cash flow that I could be getting in the one I'm in now after 5 years of rent appreciation. And now I get a new one that I can just sit in and wait for another 5 or 6 years until that one looks beautiful. So that's how I sort of approach the situation, not necessarily from a cash flow or cash on cash return perspective, more from a, how will this impact my finances right now so I can save more?
I love that. And I'm sure when I did it, I was mostly looking at how I will save $1,200 a month when I move from this apartment into a duplex, right? That was the main thing. But later, in that video that I linked, here's the cliff notes. So you don't have to click on that video, but you can watch it later if you want. First, I take the house hacking out of it when I'm running the numbers on a house hack. I want to know if this place, it was a year after I moved out and it was all rented, what would the yield be? Second, I run the numbers as though I put 20% down. I don't do it because if I did a VA 0 down, it would be really easy to look like I had a really high yield. And then third, how much am I going to save if I move into this? Absolutely. Cool. And then I'm messing with this to figure out how the views work, of course. See if there's any other questions here before we wrap this up today.
Yeah, I'm watching live right now, and I don't know if it's just switching between who's talking.
It is. It was.
Oh, okay. I'm like,
no, it's going back.
What's going on? Oh, there we go.
Yeah, that lag always messes me up too. We need a 10-year-old around here to run the tech. Your kid needs to get 4 years older quick. Cool. All right, Matt, any more we can wrap up? Any comments from your lovely Facebook feed?
Oh, my word.
We're all lucky because we did this before now.
This is a real short one today. We haven't even been going 1 hour. At times we've gone like 2 hours.
Oh, we usually have. I'm trying to be respectful of the two guys I know that still have jobs, you know.
I'm open.
Yeah,
try not to laugh every time I say that.
I'm relaxing.
Yeah, I mean, grossing 6 figures a month isn't really relevant. It's a little relevant. A little bit. Grossing 6 figures a month is a little bit relevant.
Well, I think is that the total part of the comment?
And then he says, what's he netting?
There you go.
Of course, right? Of course. But I don't know anybody that's got 6 figures a month coming in. It doesn't net something still pretty significant that would replace probably 75% of the jobs in America.
Right. So the reason I think that commenter might not be attacking you is Zuber talked about a friend who had 10 million plus portfolio, probably had 6 figures coming in every month. And then his net was negative, so he lost it all.
Yeah.
So it doesn't tell the whole story, I think. But that story does tell the whole story.
Right. So here's where he finished. He said 1% additional on variable rate financing can take the wheels off the bus when you're leveraged at 8 figures. So glad you know the math. And so my response back was very polite. I said, since I'm the subject of the article, you think I'm unaware of how bank debt or debt period works. What you say is mathematically accurate, but has no bearing on my portfolio. I have fixed rate debt on most of my portfolio. And then I put, this is why I get thousands of dollars to teach this stuff. But again, I think the biggest thing is that I've never seen a financial community so ready to give advice in the comments when they've not even learned about the business, the model, the everything. So the first thing that we do always is we always say, and I know that it annoys people, it depends. And it does depend, right? If you want to buy something for $400,000 and you have no money to your name, it's probably not the best deal to buy or try and put together. If you have $400,000 and you get a $400,000 deal, it's probably a good way to deploy that capital and then refi out of it.
Here's what's funny. And here's how messed up social media is.
Yes.
How many years have you been married, Matt?
16 this year.
Okay.
Good for you.
So Mike and I could make a TikTok channel. We could literally make a channel where the content was dedicated to, here's how you have a successful marriage. And we could slide into the TikTok, say something quippy, and slide out. But if you went and made a TikTok on 16 years of successful marriage, here's my advice. I don't think it would work.
No.
I think people would want to hear it's tragic. They went through at least one divorce. Me, I don't know how many fingers I have left to go through, but I've had a few, right? So it's almost like the failed aspect is more attractive to get your advice than the successful aspect. So if somebody comes in like you and says, yeah, if you do the work and you sacrifice and you save and you invest, you can reach financial freedom. But if somebody else comes in and goes, I lost money one time, it was stupid, don't do it, just get a job, that sounds great. That's the one that everyone's going to watch.
Sure. And again, truly for me, I don't mind. Like, I have fun with the comments. I don't take them seriously. It doesn't bother me that somebody thinks I'm a slumlord or a loser or a dummy or whatever. I don't care. Like, they can have their opinions. I didn't lose a minute of sleep last night, but just expect a funny response back. Because after all, I'm sitting on my couch watching the Bruins game, getting paid to respond to you.
There's a question here from Aaron.
Yeah.
Do any of you guys know where I would reach out and how to learn how to draw up the syndication paperwork for partners? I have never had partners, but am looking into that as an option. Start with you, Matt. Any ideas?
You got to make sure that anything like that has to be drafted, because everything is. So when you do a residential lease, most of a residential lease is not negotiable. Most of it is, this is my lease, here are the rules, and this is how we work. On a commercial lease, you usually have to spend $3,000 to $5,000 to draft a commercial lease, because everything is variable. Annual increases, price per square foot, triple net, everything is variable. It's the same thing with syndication. So at the very best, maybe BiggerPockets has at least a draft of something where you then have to put in all of the data and the information, but you're not getting out of that with zero attorney's fees. You're going to absolutely, and quite frankly, it's the best investment you can make, because you can then use that document moving forward, but you'd never want to draft something like that on your own, because you will likely put things in there that aren't enforceable by law or actually void contracts. Most people don't know that there's terminology you can use in a contract that voids the entire contract. Most people don't know that. And it's because they're laymen. They're not attorneys. So I would always encourage people, if you can find a template, great. But if you can't, you should also be working with an attorney that you make some phone calls and say, have you ever done a syndication agreement for real estate? Because you can usually also leverage that asset that they have as well. And then they're familiar with it.
So Aaron, go ahead, Mike.
I was going to say, yeah. So Aaron, if you're talking about actually doing the legal paperwork upfront for a proper syndication, like you're looking to try to raise money for a larger asset and bring in a bunch of independent investors, that's kind of a unique niche market. And if you wanted someone as a resource to go to, I would look at the Anna Kelly REI Mom Facebook or playlist that's on Michael Zuber's channel, because that's what she does. So you can go to the One Rental at a Time YouTube channel. And then if you find the playlist for Anna Kelly, she's a syndicator, and you can start watching those videos. And then she's on Facebook as REI Mom, Anna Kelly, REI Mom. Yeah. You could probably just comment on her stuff and she could point you in the right direction, because she actually responds to her comments and things like that. But if you were just talking about how do you bring partners in on the deal, because I would imagine someone who's looking to start a syndication, maybe they already have access to these resources. So if you're just looking at how to actually bring partners, like a joint venture, or have somebody come in, there's lots of ways to do that. That could just involve, starting an LLC, putting some money together, two people into the LLC. You're obviously going to have contracts drawn up. But where I've started, if someone wants to invest with me, I just call my title company and say, hey, how do you guys handle this? Because they have attorneys that work for them that will structure like a lien against the house. If someone wants to lend you $60,000, you can structure out a mortgage essentially for that money they're borrowing you, and put a lien on the house that gets filed with the county. The title company will take care of you, have the paperwork, have the attorneys on hand for you to go through that whole process. So if you were talking about bringing in partners on a small deal, that might be the route you go. But if you're actually talking about syndication, from accredited investors, then I would probably start with Anna Kelly.
I would go right to her Facebook page, because it's all about it's a ton about that. And so I read almost every one of her posts, and she is the best. And she covers her content that she covers with Mike is great, but everything on her channel is syndication. Syndication and individual investment, because that's what she does.
And so, Aaron, if you're checking the channel out for one of the first times, we're a pretty tight community of people who know what they do, right? I don't invest at a distance. So if somebody asks me, how would you pick a market, find a team, put the systems in place to invest out of state, I say, I know Millennial Mike. If somebody wants to self-manage, handle rehabs, do the work themselves, grow a big portfolio, here's the lumberjack landlord. If you want to know all the strategies for getting one rental at a time, Michael Zuber, Anna Kelly, Beth Traverso, Todd Baldwin. A lot of us have different strategies that people can learn from. And most of us, I would say, have the basics down on every topic because we interact with each other so much. But when it comes to the specifics on how exactly would you do it, go to the source, right? I wouldn't watch a video on my channel on how to invest at a distance unless I tricked Mike into making it with me. And then we put it on my channel, right? So that's how I would do that. And there's a question here from Afro Capitalist that I want maybe a little clarification on. So hopefully you can have an answer here. House hacking of single family house with low down payments. So mortgage will probably increase every time of move. Should I run the numbers the same since I'm not saving with each move? I'm not sure why the mortgage would go up. Actually, here's something that we've never really talked about. We've mentioned it, but we've never put these two things together. When you house hack and then you move out, your mortgage goes down. Mortgage isn't principal and interest. The mortgage payment for most of us, since we escrow the account, is principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. Insurance costs you more where you live because you insure your personal items. When I moved out of my duplex, my insurance dropped by almost 40% because I'm no longer insuring personal effects, just the building, full replacement, the $300,000 for injury, slip, fall. So when you're house hacking, I wouldn't count on the mortgage going down when you move. You know, insurance could go up, but every time I've moved so far, insurance has gone down on the property that I'm moving out of. You have fixed rate debt. So just because you did a low down payment when you move out, you might refinance. If you're using an FHA loan, which is not the way I recommend, it's actually one of the worst loan products for doing this, unless you're maybe getting a triplex or a fourplex where you need the 3.5% down. But with single family house with ADU, or duplex, conventional loan is almost always better. With an FHA, you have to finance to get out of it. You could have accrued enough equity to be financing out and losing the mortgage insurance. You could be getting a better rate. It doesn't mean it's going to go up every time, and you don't have to refinance out of a conventional loan to use another conventional loan to buy the next house to house hack.
I kind of understand what he's talking about, though, because it's sort of the same predicament that I'm in right now. When I bought my house in 2018 for $450,000 with a 5% interest rate, as I look around now at the landscape of the real estate market, everything is significantly more expensive and with a higher interest rate. So no matter what I do, I'm moving from my mortgage payment now into a much higher mortgage payment. So how does it make sense to value the validity of taking another house hack or the financial impact if I'm guaranteed moving into a higher mortgage payment? The only thing that I can say is when I moved into the place that I'm living at right now, each side rented for $1,600 a month. Right now, that side's rented for $2,150. It's gone up $550. It's vastly under rented. If I move out of the side that I'm in right now, I could probably rent it for $2,400 a month. That $2,400 a month would be almost completely straight profit. About $2,200 would be straight profit. So if I move into another unit and I'm taking on my mortgage payment right now is $2,400. If I move into another unit and my mortgage payment goes from $2,400 to $3,000, it's a $600 increase, right? But as I vacate the unit I'm in, I just put $2,200 a month into my pocket. So yeah, I'm moving up to a more expensive mortgage, but I'm also creating a new stream of income in the property from the unit that I'm leaving. So yeah, that $600 extra gets deducted from the new stream I'm making of $2,200, but I'm still net positive $1,600. Matt, I'm hopefully doing my math right, but I'm still net positive. And now I've got this new mortgage payment over here. But time, which is king, which wins always, will eventually make that one better, either through refinances and through rental appreciation. Just over time, that deal will get better and you can move again.
So there's another level to that too. when you purchase your next property, if you do it as a house hack, owner occupied, you're going to get a better interest rate. So that helps versus the investment aspect. You get the better down payment, but rents have gone up. You're going to factor that into your purchase with your higher price and your higher rates. And you're going to use that metric that most of us are using, whether it's a house hack or an investment purchase. Watch days on market and look for deals that you can make a significantly lower offer on than what they're asking, and keep hunting until you find one where that works, so that you don't have to go out and just buy the next thing that you found. You want to find the best deal. And that means you're hunting for it, like Mike is. If you find the deal tomorrow that will make it worth doing the house hack, you buy it. If you don't find it for a year, but you hunt it every day, you buy it in a year. Right? There's two things that tell you when to buy, and it's not timing the market, and it's not some random guy on YouTube. It's, are you ready? Is your life ready? You're not going through a divorce, a birth, changing jobs, death in the family, something like that. You have the money for down payment, reserves, immediate repairs, and closing costs. That's the first thing. And the second thing is you actually found the deal. If you're not looking, you won't find the deal. If you're not trying to do the things to get the savings right so that you're ready, you wouldn't be ready to buy the deal if you found it. So you need to get those two things. It isn't wait and time the market. It's figure out what strategy is working now.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see if there's any other questions here.
Yeah, Aaron
Williams.
Sorry, I was going to say Aaron Broderson followed up by asking, he said, thanks for that answer. To clarify, how do you figure how to split up equity and preferred interest? And that right there to me sounds like somewhat of a complex question, but ultimately, if you're going to try to bring in partners, you're going to have to kind of come to that agreement before you ever even go to the attorney. What do they want in terms of, and this is like what Cody and Christian do, when they seller finance not only the entirety of the property, but also the down payment. And oftentimes they go to an outside investor to borrow the down payment. And then they'll make that outside investor a partial equity owner in the LLC that owns the property that they're buying. It's all done with the title company and with the attorneys. And then the agreement as to what percentage equity you're going to have and what your interest payments are going to be and when the balloon is going to come due, those agreements are made prior to you ever going to the attorney. Once you have that handshake agreement between the two of you, you go to the attorney, you get it put down on paper. And again, go to the title company and they will help you get that documented properly.
Right. And there's two things to look at there. Are you talking syndication, where you want to basically form a company that does investing and you try to attract money to that? Or are you talking syndication, where you want to partner with somebody to buy some real estate? Because those are kind of different. A lot of laws are triggered when you start talking syndication, especially at the level of property that you're buying. You might trigger the thing where you're not allowed to advertise to people who aren't accredited investors, and all the trouble that you can get into there. So there's a lot to educate yourself on if you're doing that. And if you're just looking for a partnership, my advice on that is get everything in writing now while you're getting along. It's going to be really hard to put anything in writing in a year or two when there's a disagreement on something.
Yes. Any syndication agreement, lawyers and attorneys put in black and white what you want the arrangement to be. You need to have all that figured out of exactly what you want it to be before you're spending a bunch of time with attorneys, because you don't need red lines. At $300 to $400 an hour, have as much down with exactly what you're trying to accomplish. And then what the attorney does is they construct it the way that it's legal and that everyone has a meeting of the minds that is a legal term.
Nice. Here's a question from John Williams. Have you ever heard of a bank that would turn a home equity line of credit into a mortgage during closing? So it's a cash offer to the buyer, but when it's all done, it's a mortgage. I think, Matt, you've done something similar.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it was a HELOC, but it was something where at closing, it became a regular loan.
So I've done construction loans like that. And so a construction loan is not like a BRRRR loan. So a BRRRR loan is you get your deal on the property, you then use your own funding or funding that you take outside of closing to do the deal. And then you refi when you're done. with a construction loan, I'm actually going in, and part of the process is getting something called an as is and as complete appraisal. An as is as the property sits today, it's worth X. And as complete is as the property will sit 6 months or a year later after all that work has been done. So you have two gates that you need to pass through. The one is as is, it has to appraise out for what you're buying it for. And then as complete, it has to appraise out for what you're buying it for, plus whatever amount you're trying to borrow from a construction perspective. But I've done a half a dozen to a dozen of those loans. And they're awesome because you lock in rate when you close, not when any other part of the process. So I don't have to go refi anything. So I have 3 construction loans right now at 4 and 4 1/8, which is awesome. It's awesome. Can't wait for those products to be live because they are going to absolutely crush on returns.
Well, and the one thing to always remember is lenders are not made the same, right? So you have what do you call local credit unions, local banks, larger banks, mortgage companies like Guild and Fairway, and there's no right way. Like there are some regulations when it comes to Fannie and Freddie backed mortgages, but banks can be pretty creative. And it's I take this from Robert Kiyosaki. No one's ever asked for our college transcripts, our grades, our GPA, but lenders are going to want to see your financial statement. What does your income look like? Like that's the thing. Once you have that down, a lot of lending options open up that just aren't there for what you would call regular people.
Yeah.
We have a super chat from Glover. Howdy, thank you. What's the process of painting a brick home that has existing paint while snowing? Is it possible?
While snowing? No.
Right. There's a certain temperature that paint wants to be when you paint. There might be.
Usually it's 50 degrees. At least 50 because it has to cure.
Well, I guarantee that there is some type of paint that can paint in any temperature, but it's probably going to be cost prohibitive because, military paints things in Antarctica and it sticks somehow.
Correct.
But regular paint that you're going to get at Sherwin-Williams, Lowe's, Home Depot, your local paint store that you're going to use on residential or commercial properties or in the US or probably not going to work unless the temperature's in the right range.
I believe the stuff you're talking about is actually called two-phase paint. 2 different materials shooting towards each other, and then one of them creates a catalyst to actually harden.
I also think it's worth it to mention, and I know Glover and we chatted a bunch. He's got a couple, I think, in Chicago. If you have a nice, beautiful brick building, for God's sake, don't paint it. Now, he inherited this one with some paint on it, guaranteed. Don't paint brick. I see it sometimes done inside around a fireplace. Okay, leave the brick alone on the outside. They look so nice. Just let them be.
I knew that was going to be the statement, but at least he clarified with this is painted brick. How do I paint it again? So I'm not the dummy who painted it the first time.
Right.
Here's what you should actually do. You should actually look for a mobile soda blasting or walnut blasting company. And you can actually have them spray it with walnuts. And you can do this outside. It's less abrasive than sand, but you can use walnuts and you can actually get the paint taken off and it actually can look pretty good. So
there you go.
And that likely is much less expensive than a paint job. I would look into it. I agree with you, Mike. I think if you get a brick building, usually other stuff around it is brick.
Yeah. And they look beautiful. They stand the test of time so much better than siding. I got a couple with like aluminum siding and, over time, especially in the Midwest with all the hail.
Oxidation.
Yeah,
sure.
But the brick, oh my God. Even that building I looked at when I came out and visited you, that city center, that was like a 400-year-old building, 400 years, and it looked gorgeous.
Oh.
So there are 2 questions here that I will not answer, but I'm going to ask you guys.
Okay.
I am not a predictor. I fall in line with Warren Buffett saying, if I absolutely knew what the interest rates were going to be in 2 years, it would have absolutely no impact on the way I invest today. Okay. So I'm not a predictor. I think timing the market, expecting rates to do something, prices to do something, anything like that isn't how I invest. So like I don't give parenting because I'm probably not a good parent or relationship advice. I don't give predicting advice, but that doesn't mean that, Zuber doesn't make a bunch of calls, and I've made bets with you guys where I had to give you $1, Matt, on my last one.
Mhm.
But financial firefighter, aloha, saw the PCE. Do we expect 50 or 25 basis points next month? That's the first one. I'll let you guys talk about that and start with Matt.
I don't know. I probably still 25. I don't think they go back up to 50. I don't think they
Mike?
go back to 50.
Yeah, I think probably exactly the same thing.
I
With
hope
Matt.
for 50.
You and me both.
I hope for a point is what I hope for, but it's not going to be there. So I'm not making a call. I'm just saying that's what I hope for.
Yeah.
And the other one is Ninja Vanish. Howdy.
Mhm.
How long do you think before we see 8% rates on the average 30-year?
I don't think you're going to get there.
I don't think we will for owner occupied.
Yeah, I don't think on Odorock you get there. I think investment you will. And so here's most banks. It's what's called a spread. And probably plenty of you know this, but it's what's called a spread. If you're borrowing from the Fed at 4 and you're putting it out there at 2, or 6, that's a 2 spread. That's a 200 basis point spread, 400 basis point to 600, or 4.0 to 6.0. That's a 2-point spread. When rates were going nuts and crazy, banks were protecting themselves and they didn't know that the market wasn't going to go into a recession. So what they did was they were borrowing at 3.5, but they were lending at 7. Their spread was 350 basis points or 3.5. I believe that the Fed will likely take that rate to 4.5. 5.5, maybe 6. And usually banks work with between a 1.5, 1.75 to 2 spread. So it's 1.5 or 150 basis points to 200 basis points or 2.0. Usually it's that big of a spread. So if they get to 5.5 or 6, you will see stuff in the 8s. But then what you'll start to see is much more creative product. They will allow buy downs, number one. Number two is they'll allow like a 3% rate for the first year and a 5% for the second year and a 7% for the third year. You'll also see ARM products, 5, 7, and 10-year ARM products where they'll allow you to do, instead of it being like 8%, it'll be, 5, 7, 5. So what ends up happening is people end up going with payment and they kind of largely don't care about the risk. That's usually what people do. So that's where I would see that going.
For as far as it going to 8%, I think Matt's right. I think it's very unlikely to happen. There was an extremely noticeable change in the market and in people's buying ability just crossing the 6% threshold, especially out here. Any houses that are being purchased above the median value right now, which off the top of my head, I can't remember. I think it's like $395,000 or something like that. But when you have an interest rate that high on a house that's so expensive out here in Seattle, $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 houses, it literally was a drip in transactions. But as soon as we got under 6%, they started coming back. I think that it won't ever need to get all the way up to 8% for it to have the intended effect on cooling down the housing market. So I seriously doubt that it happens. If it did, it would probably be extremely short term, like touch it for a day or two, then drop back down. But also to Matt's point, investor rates at the 1.5 higher than what a homeowner is getting, they were already in the 7.5. So I have a 7.2 and a 7.1 on 2 of my loans right now that I closed on BRRRRs at the end of last year. So that might be more possible to have happen. But yeah, I think that the reason they're raising the rate will be accomplished at a lower interest rate than 8%. So I seriously doubt it'll happen, which goes against a lot of predictions that were out there because Patrick David Valuetainment was like, rates are going to 10%. They're going to go way higher than that. Some people like to do a little bit of fear mongering. I think when you take a step back and look at it, I don't think they'll go quite that high, but who knows? Guess we'll see.
Usually what you'll find rate compression at that point. So instead of them going for the 3.5 or the normal 2, they'll then at that point say, we need to be doing loans because we get paid nothing when we're not doing loans. Refis will dry up. Do you know why they'll dry up, everybody who thinks it's the market's crashing? Because nobody's a moron and doesn't refi 3% debt into 8% debt. Right. But what you'll usually find is you'll see compression. So it'll come down to a point because they'll say, we need to be doing volume.
Mm-hmm.
Well, rate compression happens, mortgage compression is happening right now.
It is.
The Biden administration just lowered mortgage insurance from whatever it was 0.85 something to 0.5 something, whatever it is. It went down to where it'll impact your mortgage payment, maybe not your rate, but your mortgage payment will come down. So that compression is to encourage more people to buy. And the whole idea of raising the rates is to slow the economy down. So it's like we have elements of the government fighting each other. Question from Landlord Odyssey. Howdy. This is mostly from Matt.
Yeah.
Do you think installing electric snow melts under a small driveway is a good investment to save on snow plowing?
So I know that's ready on. So I love the thinking. I really do. The only thing that ever concerns me with that stuff is I don't know, and I only talk about what I know, but here's why I've evaluated it and I've not done it. I don't know how pavement behaves for 10 years with being constantly heated up and temperature cut off, and heated up and temperature cut off, or even it being brought to temperature. I don't know from my perspective. That's usually something I would see in like a city area where your rents are crazy high. In a more residential area, I think where you are and kind of where I am, the snowplow for the most part, you're going to be talking about is probably $40. It's usually $40, maybe 45. You might get 7, 8, 10 snowable events a year. So you're talking about $400 or so. You can also put that on the tenant if you want them to take care of having to do that. That's allowed in New Hampshire. So yeah, for me, I haven't seen any system that was reasonably priced enough where I saw any sort of return on it. The other big issue that you have is that it can work, but let's just say it fails. What do you do when it fails? Number one. Number two is if it fails and there's nothing you can do about it. What happens if it failed mid-course? Now you've got a sheet of ice because it melted the snow enough to turn it to water to then freeze. And then where's that runoff go? You could also be creating a nice icy patch that anybody has to walk across to get to their car. So I love the idea, love the innovation. I just haven't seen it work in practicality yet in our type of a setting, more inner city stuff. Where you don't have any place to put the snow.
You could also just not buy in Dante's third level of the Inferno.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, that's true.
Terry Flood, as a 35-year bricklayer, I approve this message.
Awesome. Yeah.
Followed up with a question from Chester. Would it ever make sense to upgrade from sliding to brick on an investment property?
No.
I don't see see you getting more money. I think you might have more pride in your property, but it's definitely not going to have a return on investment. I don't think
you're better if you're looking for like really escalate the look for a veneered granite, so you can actually leave the siding on most of the house and then around the entranceway, just do some veneered granite. Basically what they do is they have these big, huge, massive saws. They go to the quarries. They take out these big, huge chunks of granite. What they do is they actually do what's called a veneering process, which is basically instead of cutting it in big 1 inch or 1 foot blocks, they actually will back cut it. So it's flat on the back and still the rough cultured on the front. And what you actually are doing is you're kidding. And they're about 1 inch thick. And then you can actually lay those up on the house, but they make corners, they make regular pieces, and it's all the size of the blocks. It's all the size of the stone that they take out, but they just back cut it. And that is a way to make a place look absolutely spectacular. And it's at a fraction of the cost of basically bricking the entire house.
Sean, howdy. Fourplex under contract. One unit is a salon.
Nice.
One unit is a salon. Seller claims residential loan is possible since it's grandfathered in. After appraisal, it states it has to be a studio. Could a different lender get me around that?
Yes, possibly. Yeah, that's a great question, Sean. That is absolutely what I call a dealer's choice loan. You just got to call around. The only thing that you might expect is you might pay a tiny bit more.
Right. So go ahead, Mike.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to go back to a previous question from Terry Flood, but you guys continue on the topic.
So hold that, pin it right after this. Right. Lenders aren't all made the same. It's entirely possible.
Yeah.
And really what the appraisal is doing is saying whether the rent can count for that unit or not. right? Because you can buy a house with an ADU, and if the ADU is not a legal ADU, it just turns it into a storage shed for lending purposes. It doesn't say that it's illegal. It just says you can't count that rental income. So hunt through different lenders until you find it, and let us know what you find out.
The bigger challenge he's probably facing is the difference between commercial, residential, and mixed use. That's probably the bigger issue. And because mixed use is going to be different tax rate. It's almost always a commercial loan, which then is 1.25 higher, which kind of blows you up a little bit. But yeah, shop it. That's what I would do. There are some companies that have stuff that get you around that. DSCR gets you around that, I'm pretty sure, but I'm not positive.
The only problem with DSCR is can't usually own or occupy. So
correct. That's right. Oh, you said owner occupy. Yeah, my bad. Right. Don't listen to me.
But if you're not owner occupying, if this is a purchase to not owner occupy, then that's asset based. DSCR is the way to go. Mike, go ahead with Terry's question.
Yeah, so Terry messaged me on Facebook, sent me a video from Michael Bordenero. Michael Bordenero's video was talking about how investors are tapping out. That was and this is a common theme that we're seeing, and so maybe it's something we could address about how investors are fleeing the rental market. They're out. They're unable to rent their properties. We're not going to be able to, as Reventure Consulting said recently, we're not going to be able to prop up the market any longer because apparently that's what we were doing. But Michael Bordenero in his video, he says, hey, I listed this property years ago, and I ended up losing the listing because it didn't sell because they wanted to list it higher than what it was. It ended up selling later for less. And then he goes on to talk about how it's currently rented at $12,000 for this property, or it was listed for rent for $12,000 a month. So it's clearly in the luxury living.
Sure.
And now it's been price reduced to $9,500 a month, and it's still sitting there vacant. Now, I can completely understand where he sits here and says, this investor is probably feeling some pain right now. Agreed. But are they representative of all the rest of the investors? Maybe we can talk about that for a minute.
So that really lines up with Matt and me saying two different things and agreeing, right? So Matt is saying median home price is going to come down, and he's right, because it did come down $300 year over year, right?
Yeah,
you're right. Zuber's calling for flat. I'm saying inflation's going to make it go up. And I think at the end of the year, both you and I are going to be right. Median price will come down because luxury is going to take a hit. That's what happens during a recession. So the $2 million house is going to sell for 1.3.
That's right.
But that $400,000, $500,000 duplex that we're looking for is going to sell for 450 or 525. We're going to pay more. Our entry level rental, class C, low, B minus type rentals are going to cost more, but the median home price is going to come down because luxury is going to take a hit. So Bordenero's right. That investor is definitely not getting what they were hoping for, but definitely not representative of investors. The investors right now that I think are taking it really hard are those ones, Aaron, to speak to your point, who got involved in syndications 2 or 3 years ago, that were projecting rent increases in 2023 and 2024 to continue like they did the last 2 years, which is ridiculous. And so now they're going to run into trouble. And some investors are going to say, I'm out. Like, these syndications are blowing up. I'm not throwing any more money at them. So yes, I think Michael Bordenero is absolutely right. And some investors are going to go look for another asset class. But the buy and hold investor, the one that's looking for 4 units or less, residential, possibly a house hack, or possibly an investment purchase, it's always a good time to buy a great deal. Get fixed rate debt. Don't plan on something happening in the future, like a lower rate so you can refinance, or rents going up significantly. Find the deal that's going to cash flow now, which might take watching days on market and making a low offer for one that sat for a while. Keep hunting every day.
Let me devil advocate this a little bit. That could be a second home, and whatever they make on top of it, they own it for cash. Miami's famous for second homes. Famous. So that could be a second home where they literally are a multimillionaire and they're just like, yeah, let's just get it rented. Let's get the right people, and whatever we get it rented for, they own it for cash. They don't care. The number of people that invest that have rentals that are over $9,000 a month for one unit, house or not, is so infinitesimally small. I would never, ever, ever make theory based on that small fraction of a market. It's like talking about mud huts, in the swamps of Louisiana and using that for some level of a metric. They're completely opposed and on the opposite sides of the spectrum, but I would never base any feeling, thought, prognostication, theory, or thesis on that small of a sliver of the market.
You make a really good point. I watched Michael Portnero, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the only thing that I watch his content because I want the constant affirmation of, if you focus on finances, eventually you'll never have to think about them again. So it's kind of like content that I take in for that. But he'll walk by a place under construction and make an analogy of that one place, how it's going to be the whole market. And that's really not how it works. How it's happening in our market doesn't impact how the whole market works. There is a question here I want to get to. Hopefully Aaron is still here. But Aaron, you ask a question, you ask if it's a dumb question. It's not a dumb question. It's actually a question most of us don't know. But what is a super chat question? And so what we're doing, the three of us and the people that we work with and know, we're trying to share information with as many people as possible who want to learn about finances and reach financial freedom, or at least invest to make their retirement better. But YouTube doesn't know who to show us to. So there's a couple different metrics that YouTube uses. There's a thing called a click-through rate. If you see the thumbnail and you like it and you click on it, the more people who click on it, the more people YouTube is going to show the content to. Then the longer you watch a video, it's called view duration. The longer that is, the more YouTube thinks people like this content. You see the like button? Every time, it's funny, every time you hit the like or the dislike button, YouTube shows the content to more people because it got a reaction. When you make a comment, YouTube thinks there's interaction with this content, so it's going to show it to more people. There's not the ultimate. The second closest to the ultimate way to show YouTube that this is content that you enjoy, that other people might enjoy, is a super chat. So somebody will put in $2 or $5, or I've seen $10 or $20 super chats, where somebody says, I want to jump to the front of the line to get my question answered now, because it shows up on our screen, a bright color. It's right at the top. And you get it answered because you might only be here for 10 or 20 minutes and we're going to talk for 2 hours, right? You don't want to stay for the whole time to see if we get to your question. So you can get it answered quicker, but it tells YouTube, this is why we appreciate it. We're all reaching financial freedom through real estate. So YouTube money is nice, but it's not going to make a big impact on us, right? What it's going to do is make a big impact on YouTube thinking this is content it would like to share with more people. So if you ever want to jump to the front of the line with a question, support the channel, and maybe get the information shared with more people, that's what super chats are for. And a thank you chat, like a super thank you you can do it after live streams. But the actual ultimate way to support a channel like Millennial Mike's, which you can find here on YouTube. So I would look up Millennial Mike. And then Matt is from the Lumberjack Landlord. That's another channel. So the three of us each have a channel. We do live streams on our own channels. And then every Friday, we kind of take turns going on one of our channels. The ultimate way to support the channels is if you see somebody on social media, can be Pinterest, can be Instagram, can be Facebook, and someone asks a question, and you know that we have a video that relates to that question. If you link it in there, that's the biggest compliment and support of our channels that you could do, because we can't link our own content on social media because that's self-promoting. But if somebody who watches links one of our videos and says, you were asking if you should use FHA or conventional, here's a video that talks about the different options. That is the ultimate way to support our channels, in my opinion.
Yes.
And let's see if there are more questions here. Richard, howdy. What causes effervescence on brickwork and how is it remedied? Effervescence. I need to Google the word. Is it colored discoloration maybe?
Could be. So it can be water.
I have Google.
So yeah, so Google, because I don't know what word he's using. But it can be like lime scale. It can be water stains. It can be all that stuff. There's a number of things that it could be. It could be that it was sealed at one time and the sealing has worn off. It could be a number of different things. based on my experience.
Google's no help.
Yeah, I didn't
Talks
think
about
so. I don't.
Flowers. So I'm thinking you mean like discoloration, but if not, please clarify.
Yes, please clarify. I'm happy to answer.
And the solution to keeping brick looking good is usually, I hadn't heard of almond blasting, but a sandblasting company that comes in.
Yeah.
I did some of that work as a teenager because it was easier than tree work to
Yeah.
go and hold the hose and sandblast things. And
Well, now they have mobile carts and you can do it walnut blasting. And the cool thing is basically it's like ground up walnut shells. The reason why you can use it is because it doesn't hurt the environment. So it's not like, and sand also, when it's beating off a surface, it actually will heat up the surface and can cause issues with the surface. Eat away at the mortar.
howdy, Matthew Paris, fellow parasite. I love it. Beautiful. T. Adams, I had a fourplex deal with a business too, didn't work out, but better to wait when numbers don't work. Need to save that down payment. Hope your deal works. Awesome.
Yep.
Roundtable question. So we'll start with Mike. This is from Rob, who, we have all paid the CIA to slowly kind of not show him our content. That's why he doesn't get the notifications. So case the tinfoil hat's not on all the way. He's got a great sense of humor. Update on any new deals in the works, Mike.
So I have an offer out right now on a triplex. That's a remodel project, but I haven't heard back from them now for like 3 or 4 days. So I think that offer is pretty much just not accepted at this point. I have been meticulous. I put probably 3 or 4 different offers over the last month, and I've had to pull out of all of them, for too much in repairs or this, that, or the other, because I'm very picky and very choosy and looking for the right property. But I'm looking every day. I'm mad I don't have something to buy right now. I got money burning a hole in my pocket, but I'm patient. So I will let you guys know as soon as I get something under contract that makes it through the inspection phase. I will let people know. I'll be very excited to make the YouTube video my 9th rental property,
That money burning your hole in the pocket is the reason you're paying for lunch next time we go. And Matt, do you have any deals in the works? What's going on with your most recent?
So I closed one like 3 weeks ago. We almost put something under last week. And then I made the call to the town offices and I said, I need to talk to the code enforcement guy. He called me back and every bit of work that they had done in that barn was unpermitted. And I was like, so you haven't seen any of it? He goes, yeah, no. Have you seen it? And I go, I've seen a little bit. It didn't look right. And he started laughing. And I was like, so I know stuff's going to have to be redone there, but they're already selling it like that's worth something. And the only thing it's worth is something I have to tear down. Our main focus right now is actually just finishing up some of our construction projects. We have 4 brand new units. Mike was actually, if you guys have seen the video that we did together, one of the live streams, that is actually that building, that 4 unit from across from the town hall is actually probably going to be live in about 3 or 4 weeks. We've got flooring down, cabinets installed, heating's finished. So we're basically down to tile work in the bathrooms and a trim out and paint. So nice. Yeah, and then we'll see what the market's like for that asset. When I first initially underwrote the deal, I thought that the units would be about $1,500, and based on what I'm seeing for current rents, based on my rent box, it's like $1,900. So
good problem to have.
I'll take 4 times 4 an extra a month, $1,600 extra a month. Yeah, heck yeah.
Did you do anything with the attic that I crawled up into? Because there was a lot of space up there.
There is, yeah, there is. The wanted to do something there, but don't have anywhere to put a staircase to make it usable space. And it was going to basically like be weird and like eliminate the bathroom. Basically, it's going to be a little bit of a problem.
Nice. I like that when that happens. I think I'm going to have another tenant turnover this year, so I will have my 5th one. I have a service member
churning through tenants over there, eh?
Yeah, I've got a service member who's possibly getting orders this year. He's been in the unit 5 years, and he's finally getting a new station. And I've tried to be as good as I can with the rent there. So he's, even with the binder strategy, he's kind of $300 or $400 below where I know it's going to go to when he moves out. So I like having a great tenant, but I don't mind extra money too.
And that's why lunch is on you when you come out and visit.
Right, exactly. Actually, I think I got lunch last time I was with you too.
Absolutely, you did. Yeah, for
There you
sure.
go.
Yeah.
But who's keeping track except me?
Well, it's those 16 massive cash flowing units. I'm just a massive cash suck right now.
Right now,
Like,
yeah.
I just carry the buckets out and I throw them out the window and I'm just like, there's
So
another
this
bucket of
month-
money.
This month you would trade cash flows, but in a year,
Yes.
I'll happily trade cash
Yeah.
flows.
In like 8 weeks, I won't. Yeah. Those
Right.
for sure. I think this month was awful. I had to pay my 2 credit cards off twice. We put so, yeah. Yeah. I was like, oh,
And those aren't $2,000 limit credit cards.
they are
Oh.
not. They are tens and tens and tens of thousands of dollars. Yeah. It was because we did like last week, we did like 16, 17. We did $17,000 of flooring last week. You know, it was just nuts. And we did an order for this coming week. I think we're ordering probably like $40,000 worth of windows and boilers. What a pain in the ass. So
Yeah, somebody was
investing.
asking me questions about HVAC yesterday, and I was like, that's one of the reasons why I liked living where I'm at. We don't deal with that. I've got 2 properties that have it, and they're my least favorite.
Yeah,
Dang.
we
Aaron
see-
Broderson. Whoa, geez. I'm sorry. He just hit you with your most expensive super chat.
Is that a typo?
Yeah.
Did you mess up? Do we need to petition
Bro.
Aaron to get this fixed? Because
Aaron has no chill. He's just freaking going for it. Just $99.99. He says all the rest of your super chats, you guys suck. You're trash. Dang, bro. Aaron, you're a straight up dude, man. Wow.
we got to each answer a question for Aaron individually. Aaron, I'll answer whatever
Right.
you want for Dion.
and for that, I know I do this publicly. Like I put my email out here, but Aaron, you can always email me questions too. And while super chats are always appreciated, it's not something that you have to do. We do this because we want to help.
Yes.
And especially if you're just starting out, Aaron, it is like drinking from a fire hose.
Yes.
And it's real easy to get stuck with 2 things in the beginning. The first is shiny object syndrome. You're going to hear about wholesaling and you think, wow, you can generate money without owning properties. And then you're going to hear about flipping and you can generate capital to buy real estate. You can hear about the Burr method where you can recycle your capital and get a bunch of units faster. And you're going to hear about laundromats and short-term rentals, mid-term rentals, all of the different things, because there are so many strategies that work. Figuring out the one that you have the bandwidth and resources for, and the one that's going to work for you, that you're going to be the most likely to stick with. For some people, it's stocks. For some people, it's starting and growing a business. For some people, it's REITs. Buy stocks, but it's real estate invested with the highest dividend. And that strategy choosing is something that nobody but you can do. Not one of us can look at you and go, here's what you should do. Here's how you should do it. So take in information. That's the first thing, is figuring out that shiny object syndrome, because if you chase 5 rabbits, you will starve. You have to figure out which rabbit you want the most and figure out how to pursue it. And then the next thing is called analysis paralysis. This hits most of us. At some point, we start studying more than we're going to invest. And yes, there's kind of a chronology to it. The first step is learning how to save, which is increasing your income, decreasing your expenses. So not letting life creep kick in. If you get a raise at work, that doesn't mean you go get the nicer car or take the nicer vacation. It's you now have more money to invest. You develop a side hustle, that money goes to the investing fund. You buy a cash flowing rental, that cash flow doesn't make your life better right away. It makes the investing happen faster and at a larger scale to later make your life much better.
Mhm.
So you work on saving now. Focus on your credit score. Even if you're going to go with a DSCR loan, they're going to look at your credit score. So that's a debt service coverage ratio, where if you're going to buy something that your income and your salary and your work history aren't going to be factored in, your credit score is still looked at. The goal is to see, the lenders should see a 740 or higher to get the best options. You can start buying when you're in the 600s, but if you can get your FICO score that the lenders are going to see at 740 or higher, you're going to get the best loan options. If you see Credit Karma, that means you want about a 780 or higher, because a FICO score can be 30 to 40 points off of what we see as the consumer. So everything you can do to constantly be working on credit score, and then talk to a lender, right? So you're just starting out. If syndications are out to go, what type of lending is going to work best? Maybe it has to be seller financing because you have terrible credit score, bad debt to income ratio, all the things that a lender is going to look at. Seller financing might be the solution. You might be 19, living with your parents, like Caleb and Chuck, and get 28 units all through seller financing. But you don't know that until you talk to a lender to find out what your options are. And those 3 steps can happen over 6 months, 2, 3, 4 years, right? You're working on saving, credit score, lending options before you've even set up your auto searches, figured out your actual strategy you're going to nail down. All of that you can do while you're watching our content. So there's things you can be working on now, but try not to get stuck in analysis paralysis, those people that take those steps and then never move to the next phase. Because once you pick a strategy, it makes sense to then move on to, this is the type of asset I'm going to pursue. This is where I'm going to pursue it. These are the relationships I need to build. So hopefully that helps, Aaron, and welcome to the channel. Hopefully you have found the other 2 channels. You guys are both moderators. If you want, you can link links to them so people that are here for the first time can find your channels. And Aaron, anytime you do a super chat in the future, the amount of words you can do is based on the amount that you do the super chat. So if you do a 99-cent super chat, it'll let you do like a priceless information, right? If you want to ask a longer question, $2 or whatever. But if you want to do a 99-cent one, right, a $1 super chat, but ask a big question, you can do the super chat. And then we have finally learned, because we're not 10-year-olds that are good with technology, we have learned to then check above and below the super chat to see if a question is in the chat that because I have missed some.
Yes.
I've seen the super chat and it said, thank you. And then like 20 minutes later, we finally get down to where we were at in the chat. And there was a follow-up question, but we're getting better.
Yes, we are.
So thank you very much for that. I see some other super chats have come in. Rob came in first, laughing because he does have a good sense of humor. So we appreciate that. And Mike's shirt fund. So we talked about this before, Rob. I don't know if you were in the chat. You did the Facebook link with the shirt, like a mock-up of King of Gary. I forget what was under it, but it was more detailed than that. Somebody reported it to me as the group moderator of, hey, somebody's trying to sell something on the group. And I said, no, that's Rob. He's got a sense of humor. Let me explain the backstory. And they totally got it. So.
And then he spammed the Facebook group with about 40 different options. And there's some good ones in there. There's some good ones in there. I liked a couple of them. I came upon 2 diverging roads and chose the one that led away from Gary. I was like, that's pretty funny. I'm not gonna lie, that's pretty funny.
That is awesome. So make sure you guys, if I miss it, if Aaron says anything else, let me know. Yeah. Cool. Make sure there's no questions that we're missing here. If you see any, you can jump in.
Glover said, he asks me, he goes, can you please elaborate on the short that you made about property managers taking 50% of your gross profits, which is pretty much a theme that we have all talked about, but the one who could probably answer it best is Matt, because that's exactly why he made his course.
Yeah. So really what it comes down to, Glover, is they basically get paid off of gross, but you only take home net. So as an example, if you have $1,000 a month lease and it's $12,000 for a year, they're going to take 10% of that. The problem is that on that $12,000, you might only make 15%. And so they're going to take 10% right off the top. So now you're down to 11. But if you're keeping 15, guess what? That's only $1,800. You're actually going to make $800. They're going to keep 1,000. So while they say, well, we only take 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 or 12%, that's only also to pick up the phone. That's only to answer the bell. That's not to go out and fight for anything. They dispatch somebody that costs money and you get a bill for that. Anything that you need fixed, any material that needs purchased, you still pay for that. So I'd come up with a concept called property management insourcing. And the purpose of it is to how you manage your entire business. And that's individual units to houses to then the multiples of houses that you have. And it's too much to cover because I literally spent an hour and 20 minutes teaching this. But basically it's property management insourcing, and it's setting yourself up in a way where you can still automate the call being taken, but you're not spending the money just for them to receive a phone call.
So I put a link in the chat there, and you don't have to go to it now, and I'll probably pin it in a comment after the live stream. But it's the hidden cost of property management, where I kind of use, an explanation. It's also a really good explanation of why the biggest mistake. This is the biggest mistake that landlords make, and people who watch my content just sat back and they go, "Yep, I know what he's going to say," because I did a 2-year study as I was coming up to retirement. I retired last year, and for those 2 years leading up to that, I was kind of scared. Like, I have fear just like everyone else I have heard that people used to own rentals and now they don't. Right. I invested in rentals. It got me financial freedom. I'm going to walk away from a job that I really like because time freedom is amazing. But what could happen? Why would somebody not own something that gives you financial freedom if they used to? And I couldn't find them anywhere. And then I found them in the Choose FI groups because they became stock investors. They have the investor's mindset. They went somewhere to invest. They just had a bad experience with real estate, didn't run it like a business, didn't do this one thing. There were several different people who had death in the family, lawsuit, some reason why their market crashed because of the .com bust or something, right? So there was some one-offs. But the main thing, the biggest mistake across the board, so if you're here, Aaron, write this down. This is the mistake that every investor made that quit. So there were one-offs, but this was consistent across the board. Even Stephan here on YouTube sold some rentals because he made this mistake. They didn't raise the rent. And it doesn't have to be by a lot. If you do a 5% rent increase, right? If you have a $2,000 a month rental and you're making 10% in profit, you're making, that's $100. No, that's $200. You're making $200 a month in profit. And you do a 5% increase. A 5% increase is $50 of $2,000. So your tenant gets a $50 bump, you make $50. Doesn't sound like a lot. 5%, but you're making $200 and you add 50. So the 5% impact to the gross is a 25% impact to the net. I think the math was right on that.
It's horrible, actually. It's actually 200 goes to 300. It's a 50% increase.
Oh, there you go. So it's a big,
but that's okay. That's why I'm here.
Well, I have Matt here. Matt's the Matt guy. There you go. Math is the Matt guy. I'm getting that t-shirt. I'm obviously not the word guy today.
If I jumped in to answer that question for Glover real quick, like most people who follow my channel know that I invest out of state in Gary. I aim for $250 a month in profit per property after all of their expenses, principal, interest, taxes, insurance, property manager, vacancies, maintenance, all that. I look for $250 a month in straight profit. Well, if my rent is $1,100 or $1,200, I'm paying my property manager 10%. That's $100 to $120. If I get a $250 a month profit, but I pay my property manager $120, that's 50% of my profit. If I manage the property myself, took that $120 back, now my property is cash flowing for $375 instead of $250, and I've essentially added 50% of my profit onto my bottom line. So when Matt says, or when any of us say, your property manager is stealing from you, sure, they only charge 10% of gross rents, but that's 50% of what your profit is.
Right. Or more.
Go ahead. Or more. But there are times it's worth it.
Sometimes.
Right, Mike, you're not driving to Gary to go and place a tenant, right? You're not going to handle an issue with a handyman. So it's not that having a property manager is not a good thing. It's know the cost. Yes. To know if it's the right choice.
Yes. Because in most cases, when you have a stabilized property, you certainly maybe in the very beginning, if you have a crew that you're used to using, that's great. But what I can tell you is imagine doubling your profits in 1 year and you don't buy one property. That's what we're talking about when you talk about property management insourcing. So I might only have 137 units, but because I PMI property management insourcing, I have 137, but because I do that, it's like having 275 units that somebody else has because they pay property managers. My margins are massive. And that's one of the things that gets banks to pay more attention to me, because my profit margins are through the roof. And when you start to get of size, they want to look at something called your global debt coverage. And that means that they want to see for every $1,000 that you have of debt, that you have $1,200 of income. And that's much, much harder to do when you have a property manager and you're losing all that money. More than half in almost every case, you're losing more than half of your profits in the first 3 years. And that's what makes it more difficult to underwrite those deals with a bank. True story.
Nailed it.
Nailed it.
That being said, yeah, property management isn't for everyone. I know in our local meetup group, Dion and I have attended before, there are some people who are nice people who aren't good with confrontation. They're not going to be able to have the tough conversations that Matt has. They're not 6'2", 260 when they go to collect their rent, which I heard Matt talking about on Cody and Christian's live stream. Like, if you need to know your own skill set. You know, I was very much a people pleaser. I was very much a very go along, get along. I didn't like to ruffle feathers. When I was growing up, when I was younger, and becoming a police officer was really good, not because it turned me into a jerk, but it just taught me how to have very tough conversations with people and maintain my professionalism. And so because I've spent years of having very tough conversations with people where, yeah, you might go to jail. You've done something wrong. You don't get to beat your wife, you know, and we're going to prison. You have those tough conversations with people, you learn professionalism. That's allowed me to do the same thing when it comes to talking with tenants. I help the marina place tenants. I place tenants here. And so if you don't have that skill set, that's okay. Paying a property manager is good. It's worth it to pay that money to make sure you don't get taken advantage of. But if you can learn the skill set, I'm sorry, Matt, if you can learn the skill set, then it will save you money, and you probably should try it.
Well, one of the things that really helps, though, is that often people can't have that conversation with a person in person or on the phone. So this actually gets you really good at templatizing a process like what I've done, which is email. You send the email. And when you do that, now everything's documented. Now, if they're showing to be belligerent and difficult in the email, you know that you're doing that in email and you can bring it to court always. And so what it really does is it really gives you a whole lot more power, because it doesn't mean that you have to become as dynamic as Millennial Mike. It literally means that you can just be doing the process properly, how you do it for yourself. Hi, buddy. Thanks, pal. Appreciate that. My son brought me lunch. Thank you, Samuel. But yeah, that's one of the big things. That's one of the big things that in the very beginning of landlording, I was really concerned and had a tough time doing it, putting my foot down. And that's where I created a bunch of templates, which was like, here's a tenant warning letter. Here is a, rent reminder letter. Here's all these different emails that I've had to send at one time or another in my career that now make me an elite landlord, because I have it literally where it's templated. I literally have the document. It's cut. I can cut and paste, and I can fill in the 7 things that are unique to the person. That's why it's worth its weight in gold. That's why people are telling me, hey, yeah, spend $1,000 on the course. I've already saved $17,000 in my first 2 months. These are the kind of stories that I love hearing, because it means they're getting value out of it. But that's something, Glover, that everybody has trouble with. No, most people don't like confrontation. It's just now, I think the 3 of us, we don't shy away from it because we know what the outcome is going to be. But if you can do that in black and white, where you're not actually having to confront the person, listen, I get it. If I were on the other side of that conversation and I were 5'4" and I showed up on my stoop, I would probably not want to argue with the guy, and I'd tell him whatever he wanted to hear as well. And that's not the point. You want to get through it. That's why much of what I do is done through, after a call, it's okay, I'm going to send you an email about that. Or yes, I'll send you an email about that. And you put it all in black and white so you can have the conversation. That's just me.
There's a question from Adam and a statement from Michelle. First, the question, is Mike going to retire before Matt gets a Lambo?
No.
I wish, but no. Matt's getting that Lambo real soon. He's not rolling around in Vegas in a minivan. That'll be for Ashley. He's getting the land. So he can go flex on the broke crypto boys.
That Toyota Sienna was pretty nice. Yeah, I know where they live now.
And the statement from Michelle, who watched the beginning of the video where Matt, you were talking about the comments from Facebook.
Oh,
yes. Yeah. Yes, Michelle, I absolutely agree. People are crazy.
Oh, they're nuts. They're nuts. They're nuts.
Okay. Unless there's any other questions that you guys see.
If I were doing anything other than sitting on the couch watching a Bruins game, I wouldn't have responded. But kids were in bed. I'm watching a Bruins game, and I'm like, and then Dion was nice enough to go, "Hey,
I thought you were missing out on some fun.
Yeah, I want to check out that article you're missing." And I'm like, "Whoa, what is this?"
It is kind of fun. Google your name sometime and just see how many articles they've done.
Oh my word.
Maybe don't go look at the comments because you'll fall down the rabbit hole of I could respond and have fun with these for days.
At least for a few hours I could. Yeah.
And Aaron, I think it's really cool because I think you're a lot more like us than you think. 14 properties, 40 doors, always pushing to grow at this time. So
that's great.
7 properties, 16 doors. I still watch content.
Yeah.
I'm still in these guys' live streams. I'm still watching Zuber. I'm still taking in content.
Yeah.
At some point, we don't have to. Like you reach financial freedom, you focused on finances long enough to where now you never have to again.
Right.
I'm not there yet. And it's not that I don't have to watch. I don't have to watch anymore. I still just enjoy it. There's always something to pick out that can make life easier.
Yeah. Yeah. 137 units, 49 buildings. I still watch content. I still watch Mike. I still watch Dion. Absolutely. Still watch Zub. There's always something that you can learn. So that's the thing, is never stop learning, And that's what's going to make you an elite landlord. And as you do it over the years, it just gets, you make more and more and more money with being able to do. And you also can create more. The more you know, the more deals you can create. That's another big thing too.
True. Yeah. I like to watch. I've been watching a bunch of Pace Morby because I've been studying up on subject too, because a lot of people got really good interest rates in the last year. And if they become a forced seller for any reason, because things like death, depression, divorce always happen. So if you're becoming a forced seller and you don't have equity in your property, but you've got a beautiful 3 or 4% interest rate, maybe even a 2 if you're lucky.
2. Yeah.
These people, you might be able to assume their mortgage. You might be able to take over that mortgage payment and pay them out a little bit. They don't even have equity. They would have to cut a check to sell their house. So you could just come to them and say, I'll give you 10 grand if you let me assume your mortgage. You get out of here with a little bit of spending money and I'll take over this problem from you. And so I'm constantly studying and trying to learn new things. Not only do I watch these guys right here, but yeah, people like Pace Morby that do things I'm not familiar with, or Cody and Christian multifamily strategy. I'm impressed with their relationship building with people who own large unit buildings to get them to eventually down the line seller finance to them. That's smart. So I'm trying to figure out how can I incorporate that into what I'm doing. In my duplex right here, I'm surrounded by a few other duplexes, some fourplexes, and a couple of larger units. Maybe I can hit them with the old line of I'm your neighbor. The line stolen from Cody and Christian. I'm your new neighbor. I'd love to know how you got to where you're going. Can we chat for a couple minutes? So you can always learn more stuff. Real estate is huge.
This Talitha Walker here is a friend of mine pointing out that I'm 5'2", saying that I'm not the biggest guy on the planet and I'm still comfortable self-managing my rentals. Talitha Walker has a YouTube channel called Durango and Pods, something adventures I should have memorized. They're my friends who owned a house, moved into an RV. Did the house to get into real estate, purchased a house to do a build of a duplex and an ADU. Their most recent deal was purchasing a house with a built-out basement and having 2 separate Airbnbs on the same place and are killing it.
That's awesome.
Sorry, Talitha, I forgot the name of you guys' channel. I will pin it in a comment below so people can see what you guys got going on.
And my favorite line from Dion is, I look real tall when I'm standing on my wallet. Your wallet's 6 inches thick. You look real tall.
Adam to Matt, will you ever get out of accumulation phase and into paying off properties at an accelerated rate? It's a good question. I actually am curious too.
Yeah. Great question. Yes. I just don't know when that is yet. I don't know if that's 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. The way that we focus is we always do the next great deal is the way that we're focused right now. I've seen some pretty good deals pass by, but nothing spectacular. However, when you finish up $600,000 worth of construction projects, when you then have a 0% vacancy rate, and everything's fully rented, I'm probably going to be more aggressive in going after something. I'm just not aggressive in going after something right this second because I'm looking at best use of capital. I've got a video coming out on the channel that I did with Zub and with Dion, which was, should I buy another property or should I invest the money in rehabbing existing properties? And there were some properties that are going to show me 30% returns if I just rehab them and rent them out. And so that's something that I'm actually going to do with a number of units, and actually hired somebody to that end because I didn't want the lumpiness of not being able to get a tradesman on the regular. And so I actually hired somebody and said, hey, I've got the next 2 years where I know what you're doing. And we're just going to invest that money that way. And we can still buy other assets, but that return there where I'm in the 30s is going to be generally better than any deal I'm going to buy in the 20s or 20 or 25 or whatever.
So before we get to the question from Art, that is going to be for Mike, I'm in accumulation phase. I'm going to buy one more rental. Like I'm accruing the cash to buy one more rental. I don't think I will ever transition into debt pay down phase. I think I'm going to go into stupid purchase phase.
Yes.
The RV, the sports cars, the
matching
horses,
Lambos.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Right. The ridiculous purchases that aren't purchased to create assets, to improve assets, with debt less than 5%, tenants paying it off, cash flow more than I need. The standard, the mantra that we get from our parents as parents in the 80s and 70s when interest rates were in the 15 to 18%, it made sense. Get some properties, focus and pay them off because you're going to make a 15 to 18% return on interest and principal added to your cash flow. But when you have fixed rate debt, 30 or 40 years below 5%, and almost all of mine except for one are below 4%, I have no intent. I've thought about it a couple of times. Yeah, I could pay off the debt, but that's such a bad burning the money to see what color it looks like when it's on fire would probably be a better use than paying off the debt.
Yes.
Here's the question from Art for Mike. Mike, you mentioned that your next purchase, you might potentially buy another house hack. Why not just invest that money in Gary instead? What's the pros and cons? And other than the con of, the pro of, I would pick on you more. But pros and cons, why house hack versus Gary?
Yeah, so that's actually a really good question. And it's something that I honestly struggle with every day. And I've got money. And I'm looking at both markets, and wherever I find the deal first, I might go with. The pros of going in Gary, I know I can get a really good cash on cash return. If you've watched the videos on my channel, I've made a video for every rental I've purchased that broke down the numbers, the cash flow, the cash on cash return or yield, the day that I bought it. And it's only gotten better with time since owning it. And I get an 18 to 22% cash on cash return. I usually get into a property for around $12,000 to $15,000 out of pocket. And then I make, 250 plus per month, comes out to around $3,000 a year. So it's a really good cash on cash return. And then I talk about what I've got here with my house hack. Okay, I bought this thing at $450,000. It appraised last year at like $800,000. I was able to refinance, get access to a home equity line of credit. I talked earlier in this video, if I was to move out of this unit and rent it for what it's worth, like $2,400 a month, it would be almost completely straight profit. Well, that $2,400 a month is like 10 times the amount that I'm getting from my rental portfolio in Gary, or from my day one cash flow for a property in Gary. The reason that I'm a little less likely or pursuing the house hacking a little bit less is because right now properties here are very expensive. Like if I wanted to buy another duplex in this area, I'm looking at like a $700,000-$800,000 purchase. It's a huge mortgage payment, and we addressed those issues earlier. So there's still that large barrier to entry. Even if I got owner occupied financing only 5% down, that's a lot of money to come out of pocket that could go into a ton of different rental properties. The pros and cons, I make money with each. The cons, I don't necessarily actually want to move. I really like my location. Dion's seen it. I live right next to the lake in a great school system. I got a 6-year-old son, for those of you who don't know. I really like where I live. So I'm kind of looking just in well, I won't say my city, but just in this local area because I want to stay right here. When it comes to Gary, there are a lot of pros, but there's also some cons. It is more complex. Like I've gotten, in the 2 years that these tenants have been here, I've gotten one phone call. It was the water heater went out. And that's not their fault. That just happens with time. In Gary, there's always something. There's something needs repairing. There's tenants that are turning over. There's, an eviction that's being done. There's always something. And so, yeah, it is an ongoing struggle in me as to what I'm going to do next. And I don't think either one's actually a bad option. And maybe time will tell in hindsight which was better. But yeah, I'm just moving forward. I haven't decided yet. I'm just looking at both markets. When something pops up, I might go that way.
So I think you nailed it when you said you're looking in both markets, because remember, there are two things that tell us when we should buy a property. It's not the market. It's not interest rates. It's not prices. It's not rents. It's, are you ready? So you purchased a house hack for at least a year. You couldn't do another house hack because you had to own or occupy. So you weren't ready, but you are now. So you're looking. Your life is ready to look. You're ready to add more in Gary. You still have the systems in place. And the second thing is, did you find the deal? So if you're looking in both, you might find the deal. Which one comes up first? Who knows? But when you find the right deal in either market or both, you're probably going to pursue the right deal, even if it's both at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Yes. It's wonderful. You don't have to choose.
You're right.
Yeah, that's a problem I want to have. Oh no, I'm inundated with all of these options. Oh, it's so difficult.
Like your
Which
agents.
one's the best? Yeah, right. Just like let's be careful making these jokes. I've gotten in trouble making these jokes.
Like your agents, you have options. There's a question here from Adam. My answer is going to be a lot, but I have 2 rentals with no CPA. And I don't know what a depreciation schedule is. How much money am I wasting? So before we answer, I'm going to say something and then we'll go to Matt.
Okay.
Aaron, please say in the chat, have you paid any money in rental income taxes? Go ahead, Matt.
Probably leaving a lot of money on the table. Yeah. And it gets worse. Depending on when you bought them, DIY cost seg, that's a company that I work with. You can get additional depreciation. You can depreciate it on a different schedule. A lot of property can be depreciated on a 5-year basis or a 7-year basis, as opposed to a 27.5-year basis. So there's that much more you can get in returns. But yeah, that's one of the main reasons you buy real estate is depreciation. It's one of the main reasons you buy it. So if you're not taking depreciation, the good news is that you might want to even refile next year. When you see what your returns are this year, you might even want to refile. But if I have a couple of duplexes, if you're planning on growing your portfolio, cost segregation is huge. There's a video on it on my channel, and you get a special discount when you try and do a cost seg. If you're not looking to add a bunch of units and you want the 27.5 years of depreciation that you're already not taking, you can speed that up by doing a cost segregation, which is a huge part of people aggressively growing their portfolios.
Here's the biggest flaw in not having a CPA that most investors would run into. If you don't have a lot of rental income and you're in a low tax bracket and you had enough write-offs, you're not paying any income on this, right? You might not be paying rental income taxes on your rental income. When you go to sell, it doesn't matter if you took the depreciation or not. The IRS assumes you utilized all of the depreciation and you have to recapture it, whether you did or didn't. So even if you file and say, I'm not taking the depreciation, you did when you go to sell. So, Yep. Mike, any thoughts on not using a CPA?
Yeah, 100% you need to. So there's a couple of exceptions. So for instance, Marina closed on her first duplex, a house hack, December 20th. She didn't even take any rental income. She got her first tenant placed this year. So I think that for the tax year 2022, she could still do her own taxes. It's not that hard to figure out how to do your own taxes and then include that you bought a house. But the second you start taking rental income moving forward, and then of course to Matt's point, if you're going to go the cost segregation, bring forward all of that into a 5-year time frame instead of 27 years depreciation schedule, yeah, you need to have a CPA for that. But the second you start taking rental income, you want somebody to make sure that they're helping you. You want a CPA because, and I've had people ask me this all the time, is it worth it? Yes, it's worth it. I paid $800 to my guy who does my taxes, but he got me $8,000 back in a tax return. So if you make, I think it's 150, if you make under $150,000 a year, the write-offs you have from real estate can be applied to your regular W-2 income. This isn't a problem for Matt. It might not even have been a problem for Dion. So I make about $120,000 a year after all my overtimes and things like that. But because of all my real estate write-offs, even though I made $80,000 or $90,000 in real estate income, actually it was more than that. I probably made $100,000 in real estate income. That got wiped out to zero. But I had more write-offs because of depreciation and interest and repairs and stuff like that. So now that gets to get applied to my $120,000 W-2 income. And they wiped that down from 120 to 80. So I ended up getting a huge tax return back because I paid taxes on 120, but I overpaid because to the government, I only made 80. So you want a professional to sign on the dotted line and then buy the insurance that says they're going to court for you if they screwed something up. But you are missing out on a lot of money. I promise you, you will get back more than what you are paying in. Maybe the only other exception, somebody like my mentor, Maskey, who has no W-2 income, right? He has no W-2 income. So he's not paying any taxes on that already. So when he comes time for him to have living off of just rental income, maybe Dion's at this point now, or he will be this coming year. When you have just rental income, if you can't write all of that off, if you don't have enough write-offs, I guess you could still have to pay some taxes. But if you have a W-2 income, dude, you're probably way overpaying. Don't make that mistake.
And the great thing, if your CPA does it right and you get your taxes done right, here's an example of 2021. I made $128,000 in rental profit. So 2021 was a good year, but not as good as 2022. I carried forward an $8,900 loss on paper. Yeah. That $8,900 of the income I made in 2022 got to go away before we looked at what happened in 2022. So it's not just how you can impact that year. It's losses of depreciation and write-offs beyond what you're making. You can benefit the future taxes. So sometimes when we point out how amazing the tax benefits are of real estate, and especially having a CPA do it the right way, the follow-up question is then, well, I want to look bankable. If I look like I lost money and didn't make any money and nobody's going to lend me any money, well, banks take out depreciation when they're looking at your finances. So you still look bankable. You still look like you made a ton of money. That's why I knew I made 128. That was the rental profit with depreciation out, that I would look, and without the W-2 as far as being, lendable in the future.
Yes.
There was a question here I wanted to get to. I Hoop Hardy. If you guys had a primary residence and were looking to get an investment property next, would you guys rather save up 20% down and go conventional, or 3.5% and go FHA? I'll answer quickly and then we'll ask Mike. I've never used FHA. I don't want to. I was living in a house, moved into an apartment to rent the house out to get rental income on my tax returns, used a conventional 5% down to buy a duplex. Conventional in about 50 different ways, to me, is better than FHA. And then I saved up 20% to house hack a fourplex and just did a conventional 20% purchase of the fourplex. FHA makes sense if you're just starting out and you want to buy something like a triplex or a fourplex where you want to keep the down payment low. But if you're going to buy a duplex, house with ADU, or single family house, I think conventional is a much better option. Mike.
Yeah, I'm trying to see if I understand this right. So it says if you guys had a primary residence, so you already live somewhere in your primary residence, and you were looking to get an investment property next as your second property, would you rather save up the 20% down and go conventional, or 3.5% and go the FHA route? So unless you're planning to move into that second property, you can't even get another FHA. Like that's not actually an option for you. Like you only will get the FHA loan if you're going to move into that next property. So if you're going to stay where you're already at, you have no choice other than pay 20% down conventional loan, excluding like seller financing, owner carrier paying all cash. Like your option is 20% down conventional loan. Now, if you're going to do the 4-3-2-1 strategy and you're going to move and owner occupy to different units, like then maybe you have an option to do that. And that's where it comes down to the question I answered just a few minutes ago. Well, is it more beneficial and a best use of capital, the buck method? Is it better to get a new owner occupied duplex, triplex, or fourplex? Or is it better to just buy a standalone 20% down conventionally financed investment property? And you need to run the numbers on both of those. And whichever one is better, you can do. Or you'll end up with the same question that I have that I illustrated earlier, so I won't repeat myself.
Couple of quick things here. One from Basilio. I haven't been able to take advantage of any of these tax benefits because I have a W-2 as per my CPA. In the future, I will be able to use any accumulated deductions once I no longer have a W-2. Not exactly how it works. So I had a W-2 and I'm not a real estate professional. To qualify as a real estate professional, you have to hit a couple of metrics. One is you work more than 751 hours in real estate. Two is that you work more in real estate than you do at your W-2. So almost every CPA I've talked to that had somebody who was audited, who had any kind of W-2, they didn't qualify as a real estate professional. You could do the way Matt did, where the spouse was the real estate professional, so then it can impact your income. But I paid taxes on my W-2 income. It sucked. Like there's just, you just do it. Taxes are set up to punish people for working because we don't need employees. Unemployment is at a lower rate than at any point in my life. The last time unemployment was this low was 1969. And yes, that was before I was born. Not much, but it was before I was born. So what we need is investors, innovation, housing, growth, businesses. So we have a tax structure set up to benefit people who invest. So even if you have a W-2, when you have rental income, that's where the depreciation and write-offs will impact you. They don't touch the W-2 unless you qualify as a real estate professional. You're still getting the tax benefits on any rental income that you get. Different buckets that they're looking at there. And then Trucking Landlord has a question that I think is a good one for Matt. And this will probably be the one that we wrap up with here.
Okay.
How do I know if my CPA is doing a good job?
Good question. The way that I know whether or not they're doing a good job is I will only use a CPA that is also a landlord and owns investment property, because that means that they need to stay up on all the rules, regs, and laws of property and how you can expense, what you can expense, how you can depreciate, etc. I kind of go the next level further, where I hired a firm that also has an EA, an enrolled agent. And an enrolled agent needs to do a continuing education. I forget how many hours it is, but they have to do it every single year to stay up on the code, a tax code of what's changed. Every few years, I will actually take my taxes and I will give them to another CPA and I will pay them to do my taxes based on what they're seeing there. So I've done that probably 3 times. And the last 2 times I was disappointed. The 2 times ago, I said, it looks like there's some issues. And he goes, okay, yeah, I see what we did here. We can change that. Not a problem. So I didn't take my business away from him. Then I think only 2 years later, I had them run again and it was garbage. And I was just like, nope, now you lost your chance. And that's when I changed all my business over to Bob Langworthy, who is Main Bean Counters. He is my go-to CPA. And he's right on YouTube.
It's like a contractor or a lender.
Absolutely.
You need to compare them to each other, using each other.
Yep.
That's their industry. They're the ones that will know, just like a contractor, if you're paying too much for materials, if it's a bad material that you don't want to use, if there's seasonality to it, anything that's specific to that industry, another CPA is going to know what to look for. Thank you for that, Basilio. I appreciate it.
Yeah, Basilio. And if you want to reach out to me on Instagram, Basilio, just Millennial Mike on Instagram, I can send you my tax guy's info as well. He's a big real estate dude. He had been on BiggerPockets at some point way back in the day. But you're right. like you need a real estate tax pro, not just a tax pro. You need a real estate tax guy.
Yes.
So yeah, hit me up on Instagram. I can send you stuff. I've also done multiple videos with him on my channel if you want to watch him break down some things. So
Okay. I hope everybody was at least forced to think during this live stream. We covered a lot of topics. The property management eye-opening moment of how much that's actually costing you. Doesn't mean it's bad, but choose based on full knowledge. And people are stupid, according to the Facebook comments. I don't think that's going to change.
No.
So if you want to reach out with more questions, you can find all three of us here on YouTube. We have Matt, the lumberjack landlord, and Millennial Mike, who have their own channels and do their own live streams. We're still trying to nail down when Mike's is going to happen, but Matt's happens Sunday mornings, 8:30 Pacific.
It's true. At 11:30 Eastern.
Until my next video, thanks for coming to my Dion Talk. More than likely off on YouTube.